A single dollar bill floats in darkness. A hand reaches out, grabs it, and suddenly we see thousands of bills falling like rain. A phone rings. A voice screams. A stock ticker explodes upward, then crashes to zero. You think you know how Jordan Belfort scammed America? You watched the movie. You saw the parties, the drugs, the yacht. But what if I told you the real scam wasn't what Hollywood showed you? What if the machinery behind it all, the actual system he exploited, the psychological weapons he deployed, the financial loopholes he crawled through, what if all of that was hidden in plain sight? The truth is, most people have no idea how penny stock fraud actually works. They don't understand why it's legal until it isn't. They don't know the exact moment a sales pitch becomes a crime. And they definitely don't realize that the same system Belfort used still exists today. Dressed in new clothes, waiting for the next wolf. This isn't a biography. This is the blueprint of a scam. Let me show you the machinery. Before Jordan Belfort became the wolf, he had to find the perfect hunting ground. And he found it in the most overlooked corner of Wall Street, penny stocks. Here's what they don't tell you. A penny stock isn't just a cheap stock. It's a stock that trades outside the major exchanges, outside the rules that protect normal investors. These companies trade on something called the pink sheets, a market so loosely regulated that almost anyone can list almost anything. Think of it like this. The New York Stock Exchange is a fortress with guards, cameras, and vault doors. The pink sheets? That's a flea market in a parking lot. No security, no oversight. Just buyers, sellers, and whatever story you want to tell. The genius of penny stocks is the commission structure. On a normal stock, a broker makes maybe 1 or 2% commission. But on pink sheet stocks, brokers can charge whatever they want. 30%, 40%, sometimes 50% commission on a single trade. That means if you convince someone to invest $10,000, $5,000 goes straight into your pocket before the stock even moves. Now add this detail. These stocks are illiquid. Nobody's really buying or selling them in volume, which means you control the price. You control the narrative. You control everything. Jordan didn't need the stock to be good. He just needed you to believe it would be. This is where the machinery starts. Jordan Belfort didn't invent sales, but he weaponized it. And the weapon had a name: straight line persuasion. Most salespeople ask questions, build rapport, listen to objections. Jordan eliminated all of that. His method was surgical. Take a complete stranger and move them from uncertainty to commitment in under 4 minutes. No detours, no escape routes, just a straight line from hello to yes. Here's how the system worked. First, establish certainty about the product. Flood them with confidence, technical language, insider information, anything that sounds like you know something they don't. Second, establish certainty about yourself. You're not just a salesman. You're their guide, their protector, their ticket to wealth. Third, lower their action threshold. Make saying yes feel easier than thinking. Create urgency. Destroy hesitation. The language was engineered. Words like ground floor, insider opportunity, and limited window weren't just persuasive. They triggered psychological responses: fear of missing out, greed, the illusion of exclusivity. Jordan trained his brokers to never let silence exist. The moment a prospect paused, you filled it with certainty. And here's the part that made it lethal. He taught them tonality. Not just what you say, but how you say it. Confidence sounds like facts. Urgency sounds like opportunity. Authority sounds like truth. A nobody in a strip mall boiler room could sound like a Wall Street insider with the right tone, the right pace, the right words. This wasn't selling. This was conversion. And it worked because people want to believe. They want to think someone has the answer. They want to feel chosen. Jordan gave them that feeling, and they gave him their money. Now we enter the core of the scam. The mechanism that turned lies into millions. The pump and dump cycle. Here's how it worked in practice. Jordan's firm would buy massive quantities of a worthless stock when it was trading at pennies. Sometimes they'd buy directly from the company. Sometimes they'd quietly accumulate shares on the open market. Either way, they'd own huge blocks of stock that cost almost nothing. Then they'd activate the machine. Every broker in the office would start calling their lists. Hundreds of cold calls a day. Same script, same promise. This company is about to explode. Get in now or regret it forever. They'd create artificial demand. Investors would start buying. The stock price would climb. 5 cents becomes 20, 20 becomes $1, $1 becomes 3. Now here's where it gets dark. The moment the price peaked, the moment enough outside money had flooded in, Stratton Oakmont would sell. They'd dump their entire position in coordinated waves. Millions of shares hitting the market at once. The price would crater. The stock would collapse back to nothing. And the investors? They'd be left holding shares worth less than the paper they were printed on. The company didn't grow. The technology didn't exist. The profits were fiction. But Jordan and his brokers walked away with millions in commissions and profits before anyone realized what happened. The beauty of the scheme was timing. They had to pump just long enough to create belief, but dump before reality set in. Too early, and you leave money on the table. Too late, and regulatory eyes start watching. Jordan mastered that timing. He knew exactly when to pull the trigger. And because these were penny stocks, because they traded in the shadows, because nobody important was paying attention, they did it over and over and over again. Different companies, same machine. Endless supply of new investors who believed the dream. But moving the money was a different problem. You can't just deposit $50 million in fraud proceeds into a checking account. The system notices. The IRS asks questions. So Jordan built a second machine, the laundering operation. Here's what most people miss about money laundering. It's not about hiding money. It's about making dirty money look clean. You need a story, a paper trail, a reason why this money exists. Jordan used layers. First layer, shell companies. He'd set up fake businesses with fake purposes, consulting firms, investment funds, companies that only existed on paper. Money would flow into these entities as fake services, fake contracts, fake fees. Second layer, offshore accounts, Swiss banks, Caribbean tax havens, accounts registered under relatives' names, under company names that didn't trace back to him. Money would leave the United States as a wire transfer for business purposes and land somewhere with no questions asked. Third layer, couriers. Actual people flying with cash, jewelry, and bearer bonds sewn into luggage, hidden in clothing, carried in briefcases. Jordan once used his own household staff to smuggle money across borders. They'd travel to Switzerland, deposit cash into numbered accounts, return with nothing but a receipt and a paycheck. The system was intentionally complex. The more layers, the harder it is to trace. The more countries involved, the more jurisdictions you'd need to coordinate. And in the 1990s, before digital tracking and international cooperation, these gaps were canyons you could drive a yacht through. But complexity creates vulnerability. Every layer is a potential witness. Every courier is a potential informant. Every transaction is a thread. And federal investigators are very good at pulling threads. Every scam has a half-life, a point where the weight of lies exceeds the structure holding them up. For Stratton Oakmont, that moment came when too many investors started asking the same question. Where did my money go? The SEC began receiving complaints, not one or two, hundreds. People who bought stocks at $6 watching them trade at 30 cents. Retirees who lost their savings. Families who believed the pitch. Each complaint was a data point. And when you connect enough data points, patterns emerge. Federal investigators started pulling records, trading patterns, wire transfers, phone logs. They subpoenaed brokers who'd been fired. They interviewed clients who felt betrayed. And slowly, the machine became visible. They could see the coordination, the timing, the dumps. It wasn't random market movement. It was orchestration. Then came the informants. When people face prison time, loyalty evaporates. Jordan's own employees started cooperating. They wore wires into the office. They recorded conversations. They handed over internal documents, training materials, cold call scripts. The entire playbook was exposed. But the fatal mistake was Jordan's arrogance. Even under investigation, even explicitly told to freeze his assets, he tried moving $2 million to Switzerland. That single transaction was traced. That single decision confirmed everything investigators suspected. He wasn't a broker caught in gray areas. He was actively, knowingly committing fraud and trying to hide the evidence. The raid came fast. Federal agents walked into Stratton Oakmont at dawn and walked out with everything: computers, files, hard drives, employee records. They had enough evidence to indict an army, and they did. Over 30 people faced charges. The empire didn't collapse slowly, it shattered. Jordan Belfort faced 3 decades in prison: wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. The charges were a mountain. The evidence was overwhelming. He was done. Except he wasn't, because Jordan did what he always did. He made a deal. He became a cooperating witness. He handed investigators his partners, his friends, his employees. He drew maps of the money flows. He explained the scripts. He testified in court. And in exchange for betraying everyone he built the empire with, his sentence was cut to almost nothing. 22 months, minimum security. A facility so relaxed that inmates called it camp. No walls, no cells, tennis courts, and a library. Jordan served less time than some of his own victims spent recovering from financial ruin. But here's where the scam continues. He was ordered to pay $110 million in restitution to the people he defrauded. To this day, only a fraction has been paid. The rest remains hidden in trusts, offshore structures, legal entities that tie up courts for years. The victims are still waiting. Jordan is not. Here's the most disturbing part of the machinery. Jordan Belfort turned his crimes into a second fortune. He wrote a memoir. He sold the film rights. He watched Leonardo DiCaprio play him as a charming anti-hero while audiences cheered. The same fraud that destroyed lives became entertainment. The same lies became a Hollywood blockbuster. And then he rebuilt himself, not as a convict, as a guru. He sells books on sales techniques. He charges $50,000 to speak at corporate events. He teaches ethics courses. Ethics. The man who stole millions now lectures on integrity. The machinery didn't stop with the scam. It evolved. He branded himself. The wolf became a product, and people bought it. Companies hire him. Audiences applaud him. Podcasts platform him. He monetized the infamy. He turned punishment into profit. So why does this matter? Why does Jordan Belfort still matter decades later? Because the machinery still exists. Penny stocks still trade in the shadows. Boiler rooms still operate under new names. The psychology of persuasion hasn't changed. The offshore structures haven't vanished. The regulatory gaps haven't closed. And more than that, we still celebrate the scam. We still make heroes out of con artists who tell a good story. We reward the performance of remorse without requiring actual repentance. Jordan Belfort proved that in America, if you scam big enough and tell the story well enough, you don't just survive, you thrive. The victims are still broke, the restitution is still unpaid, the laws are still full of holes, but the wolf is on stage, smiling, selling success to the next generation of dreamers who don't realize they're learning from a predator. That's the real machinery. Not just the fraud, but what happens after. The fame, the forgiveness, the fortune rebuilt on the ashes of the first one. Jordan Belfort didn't just scam America once. He's still doing it. And we're still buying.